Welcome and thank you for standing by. Currently, all our participants are on a listen-only mode. Today's webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now I'd like to turn the call over to your host for today, Deb Rivera.
Great, thank you so much. Welcome and good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate and thank you for joining us today for this webinar on locating 2020 island area censuses, demographic and housing characteristics data on data.census.gov. As Lisa mentioned, my name is Deb Rivera, and I will be the host for today's event, where our presenter will take you through data.census.gov to find the data for the newly released 2020 Islands Areas Demographic and Housing Characteristics File, or also known as the DHC. Today I am joined by several of my colleagues, and we will be providing support to our speaker by sharing helpful links through the chat panel in WebEx, and also using the Q&A panel to answer the questions that you submit. Now, before we get started, we do have a couple of housekeeping items that I want to go over. We are encouraging participants to use the Q&A panel in WebEx to submit questions throughout the presentation, and to use the chat panel. Keep an eye on it because we use it to send helpful links and other helpful information. If you send a question via the Q&A panel, just make sure that you use the All Panelists option, and that way all of our panelists can see your question. We will have a live Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. Participants who would like to ask a question at that time are welcome to use the raise hand icon, and that appears next to your name in WebEx. That will prompt us to open up your line, and then you'll need to unmute yourself to ask your question. And just to ensure that we have enough time to get to all the participant questions, we are asking that you refrain to one question per participant. And if you'd like to ask additional questions, you may queue up again. A quick note, the Q&A session will focus on the platform, data.census.gov. We will not be able to go in depth to address questions on other 2020 census products, the data collection process, disclosure avoidance, or the methodology. As always, we are recording the webinar today, and all of the materials will be available through the Census Academy website. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you enjoy the content. Now I would like to introduce our speaker, Tyson Weister. Thank you, Tyson.
Great, thank you, Deb, and thank you all so much for joining the webinar, Locating 2020 Island Areas Censuses, Demographic and Housing Characteristics Data on data.census.gov. My name is Tyson Weister, and I work on the communications team for the data.census.gov dissemination platform. Before we get into what we're focusing on today, how to access the data in that live demonstration, I wanted to give just some brief information about what we're going to be focusing on today, and that is the data that were released today on our site. It's from the 2020 Island Areas Censuses, or IAC, Demographic and Housing Characteristics File, or DHC. So I provided a brief snapshot of key information about the product in this slide. As you can see here, it does provide information for various geographies, including census tract and block group, and even one table going down to the block level. And data are presented for more than 350 tables for each island area. So if you visit the link at the bottom, you can get this information in a PDF, and it will also show this comparison for the other products that were released from the 2020 Island Area Censuses and products that will be released in the future. So to set the stage for the content that's included with the release, you'll be getting basic demographics as you do pretty much from all census products, like race and ethnicity, total population, age, and sex. But this particular release for the island area censuses also includes population topics and characteristics. So things like commuting, educational attainment, income, employment status. You also get a variety of housing characteristics as well. Things like number of rooms and bedrooms, selected monthly owner costs, and tenure, or whether people own or rent their home. So I'll pause just a moment longer for you to read some of the breadth of information that you can get through this release. We are going to focus on a few different examples in our search criteria, but know that the strategies that we show to access data across different topics will be similar. You'll just choose your topic of interest. So beyond having those 350 tables for that long list of topics, another thing that sets this release apart from previous releases of the island area data are the levels of geography that you can access the information for. So this release includes 21 different summary levels or geographic levels to choose from. They range from high-level areas such as the state equivalent, which would be your entire island area, and they go down to small geographies such as census tract, block group, and ZICTA. Those are examples of geographies that are produced for this product, but were not included in the previous release in October of the demographic profiles. So essentially what you're getting through today's release is more detailed tables, 350 tables instead of just 4 profiles, and more geographies to choose from. So with that background, we'll go ahead and move forward with showing you just how easy it is to access this information on data.census.gov. What we have planned today are 4 different examples. I'm going to do one example for each island area. As we go through, we're going to start as basic as possible in terms of accessing the data, and then we'll cover more advanced search strategies and more features of the website so you can learn how to make the most of data.census.gov while accessing this information. So to get started, I'm going to show you the single search. And for this example, we're going to use educational attainment in American Samoa. So you are welcome to follow along if you'd like. I recommend going to data.census.gov in your address bar, and we do recommend Google Chrome or Edge for the best speed and performance. So as this is loading up, I do want to point out there are 2 primary ways to go about searching on our site. One is the single search bar you see in the middle, and the other is the advanced search. So I wanted to start with the single search. You just click into the search bar and type in your keywords. So here I'm going to type educational attainment. So that would be my topic, and American Samoa, my geography, and then press enter. First thing you want to do, you'll get to the all results page. We see the orange bar under the all tab. Look in the upper left, and this is telling you how data.census.gov interpreted your text. So we see 1 topic filter for educational attainment and 1 geography filter for American Samoa. So always recommend making sure that we interpreted your search text as you intended. And then what I like to do is look at the tables that contain the data. So I'll go ahead and click the Tables tab at the top. There are 36 table results for this combination of topic and geography. As you're looking at the table, you have a filters panel, a results panel, and then the tables on the far right of your screen. So you can collapse these panels and bring them back out as you want and need them. So do know you have that flexibility by clicking those buttons in the upper left or the chevrons, depending if you need to use those panels or if you want more space on your screen devoted to the table display. The first table happens to come from the demographic profile. That was the product that was released in October. And what we're focusing on today is the new tables, which are just below it. So one of those here is PBG 19, sex by educational attainment for the population 25 years and over in households. And we know it's from the release from today because it says demographic and housing characteristics. Notice the tables below also come from today's release. So let's take a deeper look at this table. As we're looking, the very top shows it comes from the decennial census of the island areas. We have our table ID and table title. The product drop-down menu here shows it comes from the 2020 DEC, so decennial census, IA for island area, American Samoa demographic and housing characteristics product. This particular table has a universe statement that says it's showing us data for the population that's 25 years and over in households, and then you can look at the table. So we see our geographies in the column. So we're getting data for the entire American Samoa. There are 25,724 people aged 25 years and over in households. And then below that, we're seeing the total number of males and their educational attainment, as well as the total number of females and the educational attainment below. And now this particular table, it's showing us the highest level of educational attainment that someone has received. So as an example, if we look at this particular row, we can see that there were 860 males aged 25 years and over in households in American Samoa whose highest level of educational attainment was a bachelor's degree. So definitely recommend taking advantage for your quick searches, especially with high-level geographies, to access these tables quickly. Moving on to our next example, we wanted to show you additional way you can go about searching on the site, and that's through the filters. So we're going to use the advanced search or filters, and I'm going to map out the data from this example. We'll look at home ownership across all census tracts in Guam. And now, if you're on the webinar and you don't know what census tracts are, that's okay. We're going to be able to visually explore what this looks like in a map. So don't get too caught up if you're not sure about that geography just yet. Going back to the live site, I'm going to click the US Census logo in the upper left. That always clears us out and starts us fresh from the landing page. And here I wanted to show you the filters. So if you click the advanced search link directly below the single search bar, that is going to take you to the second way you can go about searching on our site, through the filters. So I love the filters because they allow me to precisely select my search criteria. I don't have to come up with my own words to describe what I'm looking for. And they also allow me access to all available search options, including detailed geographies like census tracts that are not available through the single search. So with that in mind, I'm going to select all tracts and the home ownership topic filter. And you can start with whatever filter you think is most important for you. I'm going to choose the geography first by clicking geography on the left. And what we're going to be doing is working towards finding a checkbox that represents our search criteria. So as we go along, anything that we click in that doesn't have a checkbox, these boxes or folders would give us more detailed options to choose from, and a checkbox is always a final search selection. When you're in the geography filter panel, we provide some of the most commonly used geographies near the top of the list. Notice census tract is one of them. And then there's an alphabetized list of all geographies included below. So there are hundreds of different levels to choose from. Remember, this particular product has about 21 levels. So I'm going to choose census tract just to start and follow the prompts. It asks us for the state equivalent, so I'll choose Guam. And then I see an option to select all census tracts within Guam in just one click. So I'll go ahead and mark the checkbox, make sure it's been added as a filter in the upper left. And then we can move on to select our next search criteria. If you wanted to select individual census tracts, you could click into the Guam folder, and those would be available to select one by one. But we're going to go with all of them. And I'm going to move on to my next search criteria on the left by clicking topics. And I wanted to select that home ownership data. So following the prompts, we'll choose the housing folder. Then I see a folder, owner, renter, householder characteristics. And then I see a checkbox called owner, renter. We also call that tenure at the Census Bureau. You may see more than one checkbox that seems relevant to you. I always recommend going with your first best guess and choose just one of those topic filters. And then if you need to swap it out later, you can always click the X and change to a new checkbox if you'd like. I'm going to proceed with my original owner, renter, tenure selection and my geography. So the topic and geography, once you're happy, find that search button in the lower right, and then click Tables at the top. So in this case, there are 176 table results that match my search criteria. The first one says H10, tenure by race of householder. And looking on the right-hand side of my screen, I can see it comes from the Decennial Census of Island Areas. It's from the 2020 Guam Demographic and Housing Characteristics Dataset, so those tables that were released today. And the universe is giving me data for all occupied housing units. So looking at the table in a bit more detail, I can see the first row gives me the total number of occupied housing units. We see it's 240 in this first census tract that's shown. Out of that number, it tells me in the second row how many of those households were occupied by the owner. And if you scroll down, you'll also see how many are occupied by the renter. So this particular tract, all of the households are renter occupied. And this table also happens to break out in the details below whether those households are owned or rented across different race and ethnic categories. So the one that I was primarily interested in was the second row, the home ownership, owner occupied row. As I scroll to the right, you can see the data across all the different census tracts. So really helpful to have this in a table format and be able to access the data in this way. But we wanted to make a map of it. So the nice thing is that you can do that with just a couple clicks right on our site, and you'll click the Maps tab at the top. And one thing I should have explained is that any of these estimates that you see in our table, you can make a map of. And the reason we went to the table first is that you need to find the table that contains the data you want to map out. So once you've gotten to that point and you click the Map tab, you are 95% of the way that you need to be in order to make this map. You'll want to make sure on the left-hand side, we're still clicked into that table. We see the orange bar and shading across table H10, which contain that data. You'll also want to make sure that your geography is set to the correct boundary. So we can see the different census tract boundaries on the map. You may be able to pick up on that visually. You can also see other indications of the boundaries shown in the styles for your legend. Notice there's a census tract boundaries being shown. And also another confirmation is you can click the layer button if you'd like. That will also prompt and show you which layers being shown on this map. And we can see that orange is highlighted around the census tract layer. So those are your three indications that we're working with the correct geography. The only thing that we have to do is tell the system out of all of those estimates from the table, which one do we want shown on our map? The system can't read your mind, but you can click the variables button in the upper left and easily change between all of those estimates from the data table, which one you would like to be displayed. Once you click the variables button, choose the drop down, and you'll be able to see all of those options in this menu. We wanted the total owner occupied housing units, so that was the second row of the table. It also happens to be the second option in this drop down menu. They are patterned according to the rows and columns of your table. So once I choose that, the data have been reflected on my map. So what you can see here is that these areas in Guam with darker shades of blue have higher numbers of owner-occupied housing units, and the areas in light shades of blue have lower numbers of owner-occupied housing units. As you scroll into your map, if you were not familiar with what these census tract boundaries represent, notice that you get street lines populating on the map, as well as street labels. Depending on your zoom level, you'll see more and more detail, and that can help you explore the data in more detail. All right, so now that we've covered mapping, I wanted to show you some additional ways that you can select filters and help the site make sense of what you're looking at. You can also use the site to download and save your results. So through this example, I'm going to show you household income for the U.S. Virgin Islands, Christiansted Subdistrict, in zip code tabulation area 00820. So we're going to pull up one table for 3 different geographies. So back on the live site, we'll click the US Census logo in the upper left. We're going to use the advanced search. And this time I wanted to show you why you might want to select your survey filter first to specifically choose the DHC tables. So on the left-hand side, you can do this by clicking Surveys and follow the prompts, Decennial Census of Island Areas. Then you'll see all the different products that are available. The one that we want, since we're using US Virgin Island geographies, is the US Virgin Islands Demographic and Housing Characteristics. So once you choose that product, you'll see it's in the upper left. Next, I'm going to click Geography. So remember I mentioned we have hundreds of possible geographies to choose from at the Census Bureau in general. If you'd like to know which ones are specifically available for this data set that we've selected, if you click the Summary Levels tab, it will tell you exactly which geographies are available. So it is narrowing down this list to just the options that are compatible with the data set we've selected, and we don't have to worry about clicking inadvertently into incompatible geographic areas. So that's a quick trick that I recommend to help make sure that you're getting to the correct geographies you want. We wanted the US Virgin Islands, the subdistrict, and a zip code area. So I'll start with 040 state. That's the state equivalent, and I'll choose the second checkbox, United States Virgin Islands. Next, I'll click Geography on the left and follow this process to my next geography selection for the subdistrict. That is classified as a county subdivision, so we would want 060, county subdivision. And following the prompts, we'll choose United States Virgin Islands. Then we'll choose St. Croix Island. Then it gives us a list of all of the subdistricts. I'm going to mark the third checkbox, Christiansted Subdistrict. And I have my second geography reflected in the upper left. And I'll select my last geography, clicking on the left where it says Geography. And the last one I wanted was the zip code tabulation area. And when I scroll through this list, I can see the first option, 871, for zip code tabulation area, following the prompts. And then we see the applicable options. I'm going to choose 00820. So through that summary level tab, definitely you can see the benefit of choosing your data set first. So that is across the board tip to help make sure you're getting to the correct geography. We also highly recommend using the summary level and choosing 871 anytime you want zip code tabulation areas for any of the island areas. This pathway will help make sure that you get to the correct selection. So last thing, I have geography, or 3 geographies in my data set. I'm going to choose the income topic. So on the left, similar to how we did it before, I'll click Topics and follow the prompts, choosing Income and Poverty, then Income and Earnings, and the checkbox, Income, Households, Families, Individuals. When we're happy with our search criteria in the upper left, we'll choose the search box in the lower right, and then click Tables at the top. So similar to before, we get lots of table results. There's 106 different results that meet the criteria for our selection. I wanted to take a moment to explain how you can sort through these results. By default, what you're going to get are the first 10 results, and as you scroll to the bottom, you'll see different numbers to page through all 106 tables. If you'd like to manage this a little bit more quickly, at the top, there is an option to increase the number of tables shown at one time. So I like to increase it to 50 if I'm trying to skim a long list of tables and click between them quickly. Another tip for you as you're working with these tables is that they're sorted in alphanumeric order. This means that you're typically going to see tables that begin with H towards the top of your list. Those tables that start with H are for housing tables. And then tables that begin with P are for population or households. And you'll see housing units, population, or households typically in the universe statement. So do know that if you're looking for that population data, you'll typically have to scroll down a bit to get to those P tables. The first P table that is in this list of results, PBG 42, is providing household income in 2019. So this actually happens to be the table that I want to take a look at. Let's see it across our full screen. Comes from the Decennial Census U.S. Virgin Islands Demographic and Housing Characteristics file. The universe is households. And then we see the total number of households across each of these three geographies. They're in the columns of our table. And as you scroll down, you'll see the household income for the different geography levels. So as an example, you can see for the U.S. Virgin Islands, there were 3,919 households whose household income was 125,000 or more. In the subdistrict, it was 58 households, and in the zip code area 00820, it's 1,278 households. Now that we talked about how to search and different strategies, I wanted to take a moment to show you some of these features at the top hand ribbon. One is the Notes button. When you click the Notes button, you're going to get all this helpful information, source statements, universe information, table IDs, as well as this very handy link to the technical documentation. So when you click the technical documentation, you'll be able to drill into all kinds of useful information, the list of tables, summary levels. There's a variety of resources that are put out specifically to help you make the most of the data and understanding what's included with this release. I highly recommend you take a moment to check that out. You'll also see as you scroll down explanations of any special characters you may see from the table and that source statement. Also wanted to show you how you can save your results. So there's two primary ways that you can output what we're seeing on the screen. One is the Excel button. And when you click the Excel button, you're going to get output that looks very similar to what you're seeing on screen. So when we open up that Excel file in the lower left, we're going to see a file that has two tabs. The first has the census logo and the source information, a link to get back to the table. What you're most likely interested in is the data tab especially. Notice that it's very readable and it looks similar to how we saw the data on screen. Our geographies are in the columns, our variables on the left in these different data rows. It's nicely indented and readable. And by the way, if you're trying to print any of our tables, this is going to be your most comprehensive option to get that table in a printer format. The other primary way that you can output the data is through the zip file format. Typically, you want to use the zip file format if you'd like to work with the data in your own software. Maybe you want to sort the information. It's optimized to be machine readable. So it's going to look quite a bit different than the Excel output did. Once you click the zip button, you'll follow the prompts. We'll choose the default 2020 selection and click download.csv. In the lower left, you'll be able to open up that zip file. And then what we're going to see is a set of 3 files for each table that we chose to download. We'll give it a second to pop up. The one that we're going to be looking for is the one that's in the middle, and the naming convention for this file will always end in data.csv. And this just means it's going to give you the data and the labels that go along with it. So let's take a look at this file output in case you're wanting to work with the data in your own software. Rather than have the geographies in the columns, each geography will have its own row. So the third row is giving us data for the U.S. Virgin Island geography. As you scroll across, you'll see all of the estimates we saw in the nice table display on data.census.gov without any special formatting or indentation, but it is handy if you'd like to work with it in your machine. As an example, column AE was what we had focused on in the table, households with 125,000 or more in household income. The number for the U.S. Virgin Islands was 3,919 households. And the way that you read the variables This PGB42 is the table ID. 015 means it's the 15th row of data in the table, and N is for number. So now that you have those two output methods, the last way you can share or save your results is through the share button at the top. This will allow you to see the link that you can copy, visit later, bookmark it, share it with a colleague, and when they come back to the table, it's going to take them through this link to the exact same geography and table selection. And by the way, this is the same URL as if you had grabbed it from your address bar, so multiple ways that you can go about getting it. The share button also includes options if you'd like to share this census data on social media or through your default email browser. All right. So we talked about the naming convention for tables as I was walking through, the H being housing tables, the P being population. There is additional information in the table prefix that gives you a meaningful, valuable information as you're working through the site. So I wanted to take a moment to let you know that the table IDs and table prefixes tell you the lowest level of geography that the table is provided for. So for this particular data set, the Island Area Census DHC, table H1 is provided all the way down to the block level. All other table IDs that begin with PH, PBG, or HBG for block group, any of those table prefixes that have numbers directly after those characters will go down to the block group level. And the last part is your PCT or HCT tables. The CT means census tract. That's the lowest level of geography that those tables go down to. As you're working through the site, one thing to be mindful of is you can select multiple geographies. If you're selecting two geographies, as we're showing in this screenshot here, I've selected a block group and a block. But when I go to the table, notice I only get one column in my table, not two. The reason for this is that this particular table is a table that's provided to block groups as the lowest level of geography. It's not available for blocks. So if you're working on the site, just be mindful if you're not finding data for all of your geographies, pay attention to what type of table you're clicked into and what the lowest level of geography is provided through that table. Great. And last thing that I wanted to show is how to find data for multiple topics. So for this example, we're going to look at educational attainment by race in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. On the live site, we'll click the US Census logo in the upper left and use the advanced search. I'm going to start with my geography on the left and choose state. And we'll choose Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. We see it as a filter in the upper left, and I'll move on to select my topics. On the left-hand side, choosing topics, I'll choose education, the folder, and then educational attainment. Now remember, we had typed this in the single search bar in our first example and got over 30 table results for island area and educational attainment. I want to add one more topic to narrow that down a bit more. So on the left-hand side, we wanted educational attainment by race. I'll choose topics, race and ethnicity. And then I see a checkbox, race and ethnicity. So here I have one geography, two topics, and I'll go ahead and click that search button in the lower right, and then I'll choose tables at the top. So rather than getting 36 table results, it is narrowed down to the 9 table results that are tagged with the topic educational attainment and tagged with the topic race and ethnicity. Typically, these are tables that are giving you that data cross-tabulated. So in this case, the first table result, PBG 19B, is showing us sex by educational attainment for the population 25 years and over, but specifically for the Asian alone population. So the B is the Asian alone table in this case, C is for other race alone, and D is for the population that identifies with 2 or more races. So those are our 3 options for looking at educational attainment broken out by race. You'll see the same table, but you'll notice that your population group is included in the table title and in the universe statement. So as an example, in this table, for the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, there were 1,570 males who identify as Asian alone, age 25 years and over, whose highest level of educational attainment is a bachelor's degree. Great, so I hope you learned some helpful tips and tricks and functionality to make the most of accessing this data. We wanted to wrap up with some resources for you to learn more. One of the items I've already mentioned is the technical documentation. It's accessible through the notes button, as well as through the link and QR code on the left-hand side of the screen. There is over 200-page document put together for you, so I can't stress enough how much helpful information is included. Many of the points that you're seeing on the slide here are able to be found through the technical documentation. On the right-hand side, if you're interested beyond this specific set of tables through the DHC release and would like to learn more about previously released and upcoming release of Island Area Census's data, I encourage you to check out the data products page on the right-hand side of the screen. To complement the information that we're providing today, we also have a set of 2 videos to access 2020 Island Area Census's data. The video on the left is for generally accessing it on data.census.gov. And on the right-hand side of the screen, if you'd like to learn more about downloading, exporting, or accessing the data through the FTP or File Transfer Protocol site, there is a video specific for that. We mentioned earlier in this webinar that there were data released for island area censuses through the demographic profiles in October. So if what we were showing today was a little too detailed in terms of the geographies you needed or number of table results, you might want to check out the demographic profile dataset, and we have a recorded webinar through this QR code that will walk you through those steps. The nice thing about the profiles is that there's a total of 4 different profiles, and they cover a wide variety of topics as well. And we're looking forward to the questions that you have today. I did want to cover one common question that we get from data users first. Why do I not see data for all of my geographies? In this example, on the left-hand side, you can see I've selected each of the island areas. But when I look at my table, I only see data for one of those, in this case, the US Virgin Islands. Do keep in mind that each of the island areas have their own data products. So in order to see the data for each of those island areas, you would need to click into the data product drop-down menu at the top and choose the appropriate data product for the island area that you're interested in. Other resources to help you use data.census.gov is our email update list. If you visit the link here, subscribe to data.census.gov updates, we will alert you to our resources. This includes our monthly newsletter that will tell you about the latest system enhancements, data releases, and educational opportunities. If you have questions about using the site or suggestions on how we can make data.census.gov work better for you, please click the feedback link in order to send us an email to census.data@census.gov. And with that, we are excited to start taking your questions soon. I'll turn it over to Deb.
Great. Thank you so much, Tyson. So in a few moments, we will begin our question and answer session. And here are the instructions. So today, we will be taking your questions over the WebEx audio. If you have a question related to today's content, we invite you to queue up to ask your question by using the raise hand icon. Again, that's located either next to your name in WebEx, or it can be also located at the bottom of WebEx screen. When we call your name, you will then need to unmute yourself to ask your question. But before we move on to the Q&A, I would like to invite you all to give us your thoughts on today's webinar through an evaluation survey. You can tell us if you found today's webinar helpful, if there's any topics that you would like to see us cover in the future, or any way that we can improve our content for you. So I'm going to go ahead and put that link to the evaluation in the chat box, so feel free to take a look at it. You can fill it out while you listen to the Q&A portion. Okay, so that should be in there now. We'd appreciate it if you take a moment to fill that out. But let's go ahead and, well, one more thing. If you have questions remaining after our session concludes today, please feel free to reach out to one of the inboxes that you see listed here. If you are a member of the public, please feel free to reach out to the Center for Enterprise Dissemination at census.data@census.gov, and members of the media can reach out to the Public Information Office at pio@census.gov. So with that, we can go ahead and start opening up the line. So anybody that has questions related to today's content, please feel free to use the raise hand icon and we will get to your question. So while we wait for any questions to come in, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Tyson.
Great, thank you. And as we are waiting for any questions, did also want to point out additional resource for you is the data.census.gov resources page. So I gave you some specific resources earlier in this webinar for island area specific. We do have a page put together to help you make the most of all data.census.gov resources. So if you visit the link here or the help button under the single search bar, it will take you to that suite of educational materials. You'll see short videos, recorded webinars, upcoming data releases, and how-to materials. So PDFs with step-by-step pictures and instructions for you. Also on this page are our workshops. So if you'd like hands-on practice using data.census.gov, we encourage you to visit some of those workshops. There are 5 different options to choose from, including basic, advanced, microdata, application programming interface, and there's also a mapping workshop. And we offer these every month. So continue to check back regularly for an offering that will meet your schedule. And just checking, Deb, any questions queued up as of yet?
Thank you very much, Tyson. No, we don't have any questions that have come in through the WebEx audio.
Okay, one other. Oh, I just saw a pop-up.
Yes, we do have a question, and that is from Nikki. So we will go ahead and unmute your line, Nikki. You may have to unmute yourself on your end before we can hear you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi there.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hi, thank you. My question is general and pretty basic. I'm just wondering who and why someone would need access to the demographics, as far as would I use it for individual project, or because I'm employed by certain organization, or if it was just of personal interest.
Yes, I'm so glad you asked that. So the Census Bureau data through the Census project and other surveys that we have called the American Community Survey, which doesn't cover the island areas that we're showing today. That's covered by the data that we did talk about. But the equivalent, basically, for the rest of the United States, those data sets are involved in over billions of dollars worth of federal funding. So it helps people identify a population of need, and that could be useful to you whether you're a government trying to figure out where funding may need to go. If you're a member of a nonprofit organization, maybe you're a grant writer looking to help a particular populations in need. Maybe you're a business that wants to sell and you have a particular target customer. Businesses also use the data to help figure out where they may need to locate their businesses, their customers and workforce. So it helps in a personal interest for sure, but there's also several types of other organizational and business needs for using the data as well. And a couple things that may help with some real use cases for this. We have a product at the Census Bureau called America Counts. So they put out stories specifically as to how the data are being used. And one other thing that I'll mention is through the American Community Survey. So if you go to census.gov/ACS, I know this wouldn't be specific to the island areas, but as far as how data are used, that conceptually would apply, and click on About ACS, there's something called Share Your Story, ACS Data Stories. This is another great place where you can see how the same types of information are being used and may give you some ideas for how that could be used in your area.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that, Tyson. Actually, yeah, if you could pull up the slide again, I would like to just briefly mention that I did not mention the 2020 Island Area Census Data Product questions that you see, the email address that you see there. So that is for any specific data product questions, you can reach out to Keith Woodland once the webinar has concluded, if there are additional questions related to island area. So I apologize, but just wanted to mention that, Tyson.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And it doesn't look like we have any additional questions.
All right. I did want to share one other resource, and if anything else does come up, feel free to raise your hand. Other than that, we do have something at the Census Bureau called census.gov/academy. You may be familiar with it since they hosted the webinar today. But when you visit census.gov/academy, that is the centralized training hub for the Census Bureau. So I covered resources about island area, as well as resources about data.census.gov. If you'd like training resources across anything that we have at the Census Bureau, you could go to census.gov/academy to learn about all tools, surveys, and topics. So I'll leave that with you as another resource. We hope to see you on some of those educational opportunities and webinars. And if there are no other questions, I appreciate you all joining. We hope to see you again. Thank you so much.